On today's episode of Soul 2, we're going to be talking about how do you respond to people who attack you and malign you and slander you? Do you use that for God's glory because there's a way to use it for your growth instead of your demise? We're going to discover those things today and break them down on Soul 2. And welcome to Soul 2. I'm so glad to be with you today. And this is the podcast that is putting the oxygen back into the Christian life one soul at a time. And have you ever been the target of accusations? And, the age of allegations and criticism is upon us. The age of trial by internet is upon us. And we live in a world where if you don't like, if people don't like what you or want to hurt you, they troll you online, right? They attack you online, and people gang up and attack them, and this is very upsetting and it's horrific, and I have seen lives affected horribly by this. And what compounded this, or maybe even helped to give birth to this, has been believed to be the Me Too movement, which rightfully battled for women who were mistreated and abused, but went too far in their techniques when they lumped all men into whoever's accused, they're all wrong no matter what. And a Me Too young woman who was in the movement, Boroshenko, her last name was, she wrote a great article on it, and I'm sure she's still part of it, but she said we need balance, because men's lives have been changed, and we between 150 and 750 men, their lives have been destroyed, and they were innocent because once the accusations begin swirling around you, this cloud gets around you that you can never get rid of, this cloud of doubt. And it is said that, generally, when we go through that, it's like a stain that is hard to deal with and get away from. So with that said, how do you navigate that? How do you navigate when people are beating up on you, when people at work are just undermining you and they're criticizing you or talking behind your back or saying things that are so untrue that you're losing your mind here, And we're not talking from a legal point of view. We're talking from a Christian, spiritual point of view. What does the Bible say about this? How do we manage this? I say that to say this. Let the attacks become not your fall, but your fuel to mature in Christ. That's what this is about. Philippians 1:19 says, "For I know that this will turn out for my deliverance through your prayers and the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ." Now, I want you to think about this verse I just read, and I'm going to read it again because it's so powerful. But this is Paul speaking, and Paul, if you read his resume of what he'd been through, Paul had been shipwrecked more than once. He had been stoned and left for dead, I think 5 times. He had been whipped multiple times. He'd been criticized, maligned, lied about. Just terrible enemy, betrayed, everything, the whole gamut. And yet he writes this again, which I'll read it again. "For I know that this will turn out for my deliverance through your prayers and the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ." Wow. So what's going on here? Well, let me add one more layer to this. Let me add the cherry to the top of the cake here. He's saying this from prison on top of it all. So think about this. He's not waiting for prison to be over or to be released to do great things for God. He's doing them from within prison. He's choosing to be great. And when I say great, I don't mean arrogantly important. I mean great in terms of his character. And he's using the pain for blessing and for purpose instead. And I say that to say this, that growth happens by embracing your enemy as a catalyst for enlargement. Wow, what does that mean? It sounds spiritual, but what does it really mean? Because, man, the last thing I want to do now is embrace that person, and there might be some bad words in your head, who tried to hurt me and my family, or they just did this, or they stabbed me in the back, or they, you've been there. I know you've been there. Jesus deliberately embraced Judas by selecting him to be an apostle. Mark 10:4, Mark 3:19, or Matthew 10:4, Mark 3:19, Luke 6:16. So why embrace these betrayers? Why do we embrace them? And I'll explain in a minute what we mean by embracing. But we embrace them because you won't reach your destiny without them. David became the man he was not because he faced Goliath, but because he endured Saul for 15 years. And I'll say that, let me put it this way. Saul was the real character maker. He was the real soul maker for David, not Goliath. Goliath was one experience. We don't grow just by one experience. But David grew because for 15 years, he was chased by his enemy, Saul, who he loved as a father. And never once did he ever malign him or criticize him. In fact, when David twice had him in his hands, he could have killed him, and his leaders said, kill the guy and become king. And David said, I won't touch God's anointed. What does that mean? He means, I'm not going to take justice into my own hands. Justice belongs to God. Because if I take justice in my own hands, then I don't leave room for God to work. I leave room for Satan to work. So David graciously and wisely refused to kill his enemy. John Wesley, let's talk about him. And we won't be long today, but I want to leave you with this. But John Wesley reached his destiny not by all the blessings in his life, not by all the good things, but by the opposition in his life. John Wesley's life was significantly impacted by his wife, Molly Vizel, or Vizel, I think it is, but though not in a positive way. Throughout their marriage, Molly tormented him, and John himself was occasionally verbally harsh. And so the man is never innocent either, totally, right? And he was often rough on her. But Molly's constant accusations of infidelity due to the letters from admirers created a hostile environment. She became increasingly antagonistic, writing critical letters and spying on him, and even publishing negative articles against her husband. And Molly even provided Wesley's enemies with ample material to slander him. So, wow, talk about a grace grower, as they say. And John Hampson, one of their best friends, recounted an incident where he walked into a room and found Molly dragging her husband, John Wesley's hair, dragging him across the room by his hair. So, wow, they had issues. But here's what I say that historians, this is how they frame it. Historians believe that this relentless opposition, and I'm sure there were others, played a crucial role in the acceleration of the growth of the Methodist denomination more rapidly than anyone else. They could not have grown if it were not for the opposition. You can't grow without your Judas. You can't grow without your betrayer. You can't grow without the person slandering and attacking you, because you'll never grow if people only are your friends and they always say how wonderful you are and how great you are. And if online you only have people that just love you and blessing you, you'll never go that way. That doesn't grow you. This grows you. So there are places that, let me put it this way. Judases help you embrace your cross. And there are places that we won't go unless Judas drives us there. And we can live Christian lives that are soft and self-centered and easily disturbed. But Judas rescues us from all that. He rescues us from lives of comfort and from thinking too much of ourselves and from feeding too much on people's praises. Because that happened to me many years ago. I used to feed on people's praises. And how did God set me free? By slander, by people trying to destroy my life. And that's how I grew. Because that's how we all grow. We grow by opposition. We don't grow by comfort. So embracing your Judas doesn't mean, and here's where I'm explaining what it means to embrace. It doesn't mean that you have to be okay with horrible trauma, with being assaulted or hurt or abused by somebody. But it's embracing what God will do through it. And at the same time, praying for them is a way to embrace them. Speaking blessing over your enemies is a way to embrace them. Prayer, repentance, soul-searching surrender are all things that really only happen when you embrace your opposition. Because have you ever noticed that your life can get cool sometimes with God, kind of like not praying too much and just kind of living for yourself and being selfish and doing only what you want. But when opposition comes, what happens? You go right to your knees. you go right to prayer. You begin repenting. You begin searching your heart. You begin surrendering and saying, God, what are you saying? What are you doing? And so I want to leave you with that today, because you may wonder, I've tried that. I've tried to speak blessing over my enemies, but they're still attacking me. What do I do then? Well, maybe we'll talk about that next time. But if you're doing the right thing and you're still under attack, there's more you can do. There's more you can do scripturally, and maybe we'll break that down next time. But I want you to be blessed today, and check out where we are online. Different venues here, and just let God bless you with this ministry. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to be famous or anything. I just want to bless people. I just want to show them how to navigate their life and speak oxygen into their souls. That's our vision, to breathe oxygen into people's lives. And please recommend it to somebody. Subscribe and share it, and as much as you can, and that would be appreciated. And till next time, be blessed.